Ladies and gentlemen, Stick and Hack members, and those looking to improve their golf game, your coursework lesson is starting now.
All right, everybody, good afternoon and welcome in. This is Coursework by Stick and Hack. It's 2 o'clock in the East here, Tuesday, January the 11th. This is Coursework Live, which means it's live and interactive to you. John Mascara is the guest again today and the guest instructor coming to us, talking today about understanding the bounce. That's the wedge bounce. We've heard this term before in chipping. The bounce of your wedge can impact a lot. This lesson is going to be specific understanding of how ball position and turf conditions call for different setups and to use the bounce to your advantage. John Mascara is an accomplished PGA professional, director of golf at Alpine Country Club, located in New Jersey. And he's also on 98.7 ESPN radio in New York City every Sunday during the golf season, along with many other golf media outlets. He is a broadcaster, he's a golf professional, and he is a coursework instructor. And now he's with me here. John, good to see you. You've got a parka on. What is happening? It's cold in New Jersey.
I've got
what are we
the
doing?
hat. It's about 14 degrees outside. You know, last week I was on, it was about 25. So we're working our way down to the sub-R. It's not the what am I doing outside degrees yet, but it's like this is crazy degrees right now. So yeah. It's good to be inside, but it is certainly the winter in the Northeast.
Well, you got an incredible studio there, and you're going to walk us through the bounce. Let's just before we get into some of the lessons, let's just talk some housekeeping here. We are live, so if you have questions for John, you want to understand a little bit more about your game, you can chat them here on YouTube. If you're watching it on YouTube on the live stream, if you're inside the Coursework platform, you can text it as well. We'll put the number up there on the screen here, so you can text us at 317-953-5451. Again, 317-953-5451. Text us your question for John, or use the chat feature on YouTube throughout this lesson. We'll get to the questions as they come in. But for the next 20 minutes or so, John, we're going to let you walk us through the bounce. So give me a quick understanding of where the bounce comes in, and what, when we hear that on the PGA coverage or the LPGA coverage, what that truly means, and what is probably the number one thing that we need to understand about how our wedge game needs to use the bounce.
Yeah, so we hear all the time, engaging the bounce, what is bounce, and I thought of a great way to talk about that, and maybe show everyone what it for what we're from home. And the shovel has bounce, okay? So I'm gonna get up and I'll move my chair so we can see it a little bit better. But it's gonna be talking about mostly today is how to engage that bounce. So here's my shovel, okay? And what bounce is, it's going to be this angle here. So if my arm was the ground, the way the sole of the shovel, the bottom here, and the leading edge, just like your club, that little wedge of angle there is the bounce. Now this is probably a 20-degree bounce, okay? We don't really have that much in a wedge, but I think this is good to understand with how you would want to dig this way or dig down this way. So let me get my wedge, and I hope that makes sense to everybody. Probably, and I hope you have your wedge at home with you as well. Is just check out how that club sits on a flat surface or on the bottom of your hand. You can really just look at how that leading edge is up in the air. As bounce increases, so I have a 10-degree bounce, which is pretty low. They go up to about 14 and even 16 degrees. That means that my leading edge is closer to the ground than maybe someone else's, okay? And that's really dictated by how I hit shots, okay? So I'm a bit of a digger, so I tend to be a little steeper into the shot. So I get that leading edge a little closer to the ground, okay? Does that make sense for everyone? If you have any questions, and I'll come back here. If you have any questions, text us, hit us up on the chat feature. I'd be happy to take some of your questions. But let's talk just a little bit more about our different wedges. And most of us will have, I would hope, at least 3 wedges in our bag, possibly 4. I have a pitching wedge, a gap wedge, a 54-degree sand wedge, and a 58-degree lob wedge. And I'm gonna start out with my 58-degree. And it's important to know when we talk about bounce that it's here to help us. Okay, bounce is our friend. Let's not ignore our friend. Okay? So what I see so many times with people chipping the ball, and, we get that ball in the back of our stance, right? Hope you can see that here. I'll move back here. Here we get the ball back in our stance, okay? And we're going to lean our hands forward and just kind of come down and through it, okay? It works. It's a little more difficult, and I'm going to tell you why. As we lean the handle forward and we move the ball back, all we're doing is taking that bounce and making it a lot lower. So I've gone from 12 degrees of bounce at a normal setup, right? If I put my hands forward, I move the ball back, now I'm going to 1 degree of bounce, okay? So that club is going to dig, right? Remember our shovel? As I take that bounce off, I'm going to dig, right? We want to dig up that snow here in New Jersey. We're going to go down and get it. Whereas when we have a nice soft fairway lie or in the sand, we want to feel like it's a little bit more of this, right? We want to feel like it's more of a sliding, sweeping motion. And that's what I want you to do when you're chipping. Okay, we don't want to take those big divots where we're hitting down. We want to let that club just sit naturally on there and just pitch it up real softly. What I tell my students is I want to feel like that back of the club, right? Not the leading edge, but this back part is what's going to be hitting the ground. Okay? And I'm going to give everyone a challenge. If you can get outside, if it's warm enough with where you are, set up some golf balls. Play the ball right in the middle of your stance. Let that club just sit real natural. And I want you to purposely hit about an inch behind the ball with that back edge of the club. I'm going to try to do it here on the turf. Hit right behind it. I could still hit a great shot. That bounce is allowing the club not to dig, but to, say it with me, bounce off the turf and get through the shot. I hope that makes sense to everyone.
It does, and John, it's interesting to see that concept with the shovel, because that shovel looks and feels just like the back of your club. However, to see it in that size is remarkable. At the end of the day, this is a feel, and they talk all the time about the feel of a shot and the feel of the club. But you need to be as connected to the ground as you've ever been before with your wedge game, because that is what will eliminate, hopefully, majority of the time, eliminate that dig and that chunk, and that dreaded chunk is just by feeling that bottom of that club hit the ground. Is it truly your first lesson that simple?
Well, it's a matter of, you're right, understanding the interaction between the club and especially the bottom of the club and the turf. And that's part of really, as you get to be a better player, you have to look at the conditions you're playing in also. So let's take this for example. I've got a lie board here. So this is a piece of plastic. I don't know if you can get a firmer lie than this, Adam. I think this is as firm as they come. Okay? So let's think about this. So I've got a real tight, firm lie. Okay? Bounce, or having too much bounce, might hurt me. Right? So if I have the club with a lot of bounce, there's a good chance I could skull it, right? Because that club is not going to dig into that firm turf. So for that, I'm going to then take a different club, or maybe lean my hands forward, or like we said before, put that ball position back. This will allow me to come a little steeper and take some of that bounce off so I can hit a good shot that way. It's a matter of understanding the way the club and the turf interact with each other.
All right, another question, John, is on when you're talking about that bounce, does this have anything to do with 52, 56, 54, 60 degree? Does the degree of loft matter at all with how you utilize bounce in your chip shot?
Two different things, right? So the degree of bounce and the degree of your loft are two different things. You could have a 58 degree with 10 degrees, like 12 degrees like I have, or 16. It's still that amount of loft. You're just going to be able to change your hand position and the ball position if you need to hit higher and lower. Really, the bounce is more dictated to the type of swing you have and contact into the ball. Someone who's steep is going to need some more bounce, so it doesn't just, listen, we've all been there before. really soft conditions, right? If you get steep, boom, you can lay the sod right over the top of it and let you hit that ball perfectly. So there's an example where someone who's steep into the ball, higher bounce, versus someone who's a bit of a sweeper coming in this way. If we have a lot of bounce, we're going to hit that skull type shot like I just hit there, right? I tried to come in real shallow on that. That makes sense, Adam? Does that kind of answer your question about the interaction with loft and bounce?
It does indeed. Thank you. A reminder, you can chat your questions to us if you're watching on YouTube, or you can text them as well. Number at the bottom of the screen. Text your questions in, or if you're having some difficulties getting in, or whatever the case may be. Well, if you're having difficulties getting in, you're not hearing me tell you how to fix that, are you? Text your questions here, or on the stream itself with John Mascara here on the Coursework Live, talking about the bounce powered by Stick and Hack.
So let's talk about one last thing with bounce, and that's going to be ball position. Okay, and I'm going to come up to the camera a little bit here so we can see this a little more close up. Let's use my hand, right, as the ground, okay? And this will be the front of my stance, and this will be the back. As I move the club towards the front of my stance, what am I doing to the bounce, right? I'm increasing it, right? That leading edge is coming up off the ground. So I'm really adding bounce there, right? So I'm going to be more of a sweeping, kind of come in this way with it. As I'm going backwards, I'm doing the opposite, right? I'm really engaging that leading edge and hitting down and into it. So if I want the club to kind of slide through and I want to hit this high lofted shot, am I going to play the ball back and my hands forward, or am I going to play it more up in my stance? I think we can all agree that moving the ball up not only adds loft, but really engages that bounce and lets me to hit that high, soft type flop shot that way. If I want to hit something a little more low and running, I'd put the ball back in my stance, but I would make sure that I really want to hit ball first. I don't want to have that laying the sod over feel. I got to hit the ball first. So a little tougher shot to hit that runner with the ball back and the hands forward, because contact is going to be so important, right? Versus middle of the stance or even a little bit more far forward, where we can actually just let that club hit and just slide through. And probably a little easier to do on real grass versus this turf, but you can get the idea how I could really let that club slide and use that bounce, almost like a skid plate. Does that make sense? Just kind of skids through and under the ball.
John, when you were going through that motion right there, I found myself, and I'm sure that other people have this thing, when they're trying to hit a low runner or they're trying to hit a higher flop shot, they almost help the ball. And that goes back to the original point of your lesson is trust the bounce and trust the connection between the club and the ground. When you're trying to hit a low runner, it's just about ball position and the actual kind of your shot, making sure you're going all the way through, but to trust the bounce. Talk to us about the errors that people make when it comes to trying to hit that low running spinner, sticky, shot that people love to hit, or if they're trying to get over a trap, over some trouble, the dreaded flop shot, which sometimes can end up in a skull right into that water you're trying to avoid.
Right. Well, the first thing, what I think people are so adept to doing is they're by the green, they grab that sand wedge and they're off, right? They don't really have an idea what type of shot they want to hit. And then they use that sand wedge, and then they make some manipulation moves. If you're going to hit that low running shot, go ahead and grab your pitching wedge. This way you don't have to play the ball as far back to get the ball to go lower, and you don't really have to take as much bounce off. I could just play that little running shot right in the middle, and just kind of straightforward through that way. With that shot, I feel like so many players, they have that sand wedge, and like, oh boy, I got to hit this low one. Let me play it back here and really lean it forward. And then now from that position, I've got to really hit it perfectly. If I hit a little bit behind it, if I move a little bit, I'm going to hit that sculled shot, or I'm going to fan it out. Right, kind of like that. So use the right tool for the right shot you want to hit. So let's talk about the other side of that with the high soft shot. I'm going to want to use the most loft that I have in my bag, right? Let's let some of the club help us out there. And then it's just a matter of a better setup, playing the ball a little bit more forward. And to your point, not wanting to help it up there, we don't want to get where we drop that right shoulder, because when we drop, we're gonna hit it with that part. We're really adding. We're going from 12 degrees to 25 degrees of bounce. So really hard to hit that shot. I think what most people could do is just set up with the ball almost like a driver off that front foot. Just let that club sit naturally with the bounce and just try to swing aggressively through it, and you'll hit that nice high flop shot.
John, let's talk about some practice aids and some ways to do it. We're going to showcase here a question. Would putting a towel down behind the ball help to make a wedge shot swing better for contact, to reduce sweeping and more downward motion? So we talk a lot about this is great in the game itself of golf, but when you are working out some things and trying to gain that trust of your own swing and your own ability, what are some things they can do for 10, 15 minutes on a range that could be helpful?
So I'll use my head cover here, and they were kind of talking about a towel. I wouldn't be so afraid to hit behind the ball. Does that make sense? I wouldn't want to feel like I have to hit it perfectly right here every time. And that's where I may be different from some other people, where I'm out there hitting practice shots, no divots on my little pitch shots. I mean, there are just maybe like a little brush. I'm just trying to feel like that back part of the club is brushing through the ground. So sometimes when you tend to put a towel behind the ball, you have to come down this way on it, okay? And if that's the shot you want to hit, if you're a steep player, you want to hit it that way, that's okay. But I would challenge everyone to get out there with their wedge and almost, again, like try to hit it fat. Try to hit it, if that makes sense, right? We're going to try to hit behind the ball. I think you're going to be so pleasantly surprised if you can just get the feeling of that bounce and that back part of the club, that sole, just kind of skipping off the ground. You'll hit a very consistent trajectory shot because there's no manipulation of the club or ball position. It's going to be very consistent, and you'll see that the ball has a little bit more spin on it. You're really letting the loft do the work for you.
So you're the second instructor. Gavin Parker also said the same thing, John, when he was talking about chipping, was to truly bring in that thought of hitting it fat and hitting behind the ball, almost I think he said an index card behind the ball, which was counterintuitive to everything that I've ever thought. Who the hell wants to hit it fat? Nobody. We have plenty of practice hitting it fat on our own. Why would we go out and practice hitting it fat? But it really is to understand the feel of a proper swing. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Listen, I've been saying it since high school. Fat is cool. So, I'll give you an on-screen laugh for that, John. Well done. Well done. So I am trying now. Listen, on our full swing shots where we're hitting irons into greens, don't hit it fat, okay? But when we're talking about chipping, we want to hit a little bit behind the ball, let that club skip right through, hit a nice soft playable shot. Let's get everyone out of this back foot, hands forward way of chipping. Let's get out of that. Let's change clubs if we want to hit the ball at different trajectories, but let's keep the ball position somewhere in the middle, maybe a little further front, and just let the club kind of swing through.
Now, what?
I'm gonna run for president on that slogan.
I love it. When you're hitting those types of shots, are we at a 10 to 20 yard chip there? Is that what you're kind of feeling?
That's about 20. I'm hitting into a screen now, but that's about my feel. I can go further. If I need to hit it further, I'm going to take more club. That's a matter. I want it here. I'm going to go from a 58 to a 54. I'm just going to hit that little shot where it's right in the middle. Boom. That's probably about a 40-yard pitch type shot. But again, I'm just really trying to get the feeling of that club and that bottom, again, like acting like a skid plate. For those of you who know, like a skid plate on the bottom of a car kind of skips right off it. It's a flat spot, and that's what this does with the turf. It just kind of skims and skips off it. We don't want to dig.
Now, John, it does look very...
Digging is for shovels.
That's right. It does look like a very easy shot when you are doing it, right? I mean, there's not a lot of tension in your swing. There's not a lot of tension in your stance. This is obviously years of instruction, and you're a good golfer. You're a stick. But at the end, any hack can be out there. Any stick can be out there, learning and understanding that a tension-free swing in a chip like this, trusting the bounce, and understanding really the ball position, and you're going to see a massive change in how you approach the near greenside shots more than ever, right?
Yeah, I think so. We talked last week about how important putting is, and chipping and your short game. These are the two areas that are really going to get you from that hack position closer to the stick position. We want you to get better. And listen, we're going to miss greens. I miss greens. You miss greens. We all miss greens. But the fact that I feel comfortable enough with my short game that I can get it up and down is what saves me from big numbers on the golf course. So put some time into hitting some chip shots. You can do it with those little wiffle balls. You could do it on carpet. Try to hit it fat. Try to hit a little bit behind it. Engage that bounce. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. You see the ball will take off nicely, high, very soft shot, and that's great for when we're on the golf course.
Now, when you talked about if you want a different trajectory around the green to use a different club, you said that kind of, and then you moved on and brushed right past it. But go back to that as we close up here on this live coursework lesson. What does that mean, and what are some of your tips around understanding the right shot around the green? I know this doesn't necessarily hit the bounce, but I've got you here, so why the hell not?
Let me get some more golf balls. Good question. So for me, I kind of use my gap wedge. I have an A wedge here. That's kind of like my baseline for all of my shots around the green. I know that when I play this ball with my gap wedge, right, normal kind of chipping position, my ratio of air time to ground roll, okay, is about a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I have a 20-yard shot, I know that if I hit it 10 yards in the air, it's going to run out another 10. Okay, so I'm going to make some calculations based on the green direction. Am I going downhill? Am I going uphill? What type of grass am I out of to make that judgment on club? But I go from there. So if I need to get it to run more, I'm going to go to my 9-iron. And that's going to give me about a 1-to-2 ratio. I hope that makes a little sense. So 10 yards in the air, it's going to roll 20. I'm not going to change anything with my setup. Ball is going to be in the same position. It's going to be that shot. That's my 9. If I want it to roll even more, I'm going to grab my 8. That's going to be 1-to-4. Okay, so you see where we're going with this is we're changing the ratio. That's going to be a lower running shot. And I can just keep on going. And even the other way, if I go with the sand wedge, it's going to be a 2 parts in the air to 1 part on the ground. So, and that's really something you could just do one afternoon is bring your bag out, start in the middle. Maybe it's your gap wedge, maybe it's your pitching wedge. I don't know where your club makeup is, and kind of figure out a baseline where you get that ball to go equal amounts in the air on the ground, and then kind of work your way out from there. And I think you'll understand how just by changing the club, right? We're talking about interchangeable parts here, and changing nothing more than that relaxed swing will make you a much better short game player.
John Mascara, our guest today here on Coursework Live from Stick and Hack, and you are currently at the Alpine Country Club, Director of Golf there, and you've got some travel coming up. You're going to be down in Florida here as well. I'll see you down there at the merchandise show, of course, down in Orlando. Look forward to that. But John, again, just an incredible lesson. We appreciate it. You've got a third lesson that's coming up here next week as well.
Yes.
As one of our new instructors, we couldn't be more happy that you're here giving us some of these. I know that these sound in some cases.
Next week, the big guy. We're taking the big guy out. Yeah.
So we've moved from putting to the wedge and now to the big stick in 3 weeks. But we appreciate your support here of Stick and Hack, of course, and of Coursework. John, safe travels to you, sir. Stay warm out there, and appreciate it very much. We'll see you next week. All right.
I need about 5 minutes to put my 17 coats on. So I'm glad. Thanks everyone for coming out. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took some nuggets out, and check us out online and check us out on all the social media. We're here to help.
Outstanding. There he goes. John Mascara. Thank you so much, Madam Grubb with Stick and Hack. A reminder that Coursework is available to you live and interactive on a weekly basis with different instructors, top 50, top 100 instructors across the country coming into your living room, your office, or your backyard, wherever you may be. If you're outside right now working on some of these things, God bless you, because you're not in the Midwest, you're not in the Northeast, and you're not freezing. We appreciate your support of Stick and Hack. We'll see you next time, next week on Coursework live from Stick and Hack. Bye-bye, everybody.